The Borderlands franchise managed to win me over with the first two games. The pre-sequel, on the other hand, was where I was beginning to get bored. The whole looter-shooter experience was beginning to become repetitive, and it seemed as though Gearbox Software had really lost their inspiration. But then I saw the trailer for the third game. It looked pretty badass. That gun with the little legs was the cherry on top of the cake for me, so I knew I had to play it. As always, let's talk about Ultrawide first. This game supports it natively in both 21:9 and 32:9, so no need to mess with any files or external fixes. Awesome. Another great thing is that it still offers LAN play. The graphics have been significantly overhauled, and playing this game will make the previous ones look disgusting to you. So in case you want to try the whole series, my advice is to actually play them in ascending order. Start with the old ones so that every next game actually feels like an improvement, because if you start from the third one and you want to move down, they're gonna look so bad to you. Let me tell you a bit more about the story before we move on to the gameplay. The idea here was to try and create a strong and emotional narrative. Most characters from the previous games are here, but a few new ones have also been added. I'm surprised that Gearbox even considered building a drama into Borderlands' story, because this has never worked for them in the past. The game's universe is simply way too wacky, and due to the large cast, the player pretty much doesn't get a chance to feel emotionally involved with any of them. When you ask me about previous games, I will tell you about the idiotic humor in the games. For example, there was a quest where a psycho stopped you and demanded that you shoot him in the face. The humor can at times be very childish as well, which is strange because it can also be very mature at the same time. So I feel like the writers were either trying to cater to all audiences or are simply weird people who don't really get any age group at all. Still, the humor is one of the strong suits of the Borderlands franchise, and it will make you smile in this game more often than not. We have new antagonists, and this time around they're called the Calypso Twins. There's two of them. I actually find them quite likable, even if they are nowhere near Handsome Jack levels. The great thing about them is that they come up with lots of pop culture references. We have jokes about streamers, influencers, fanatic superfans, all that stuff. The antagonists work very well and the voice acting is excellent, although I have to make clear that this is only the case because of the game itself, which has this whole tongue-in-cheek attitude. The part that hurts the game are mostly the good guys, some of which can be very annoying, and I don't mean claptrap. Since I can't risk spoiling anything, let me simply say that the story is serviceable but also boring. The player gets to play it but never really be part of it. Now let's talk about the gameplay. If you've played a Borderlands game before, you should have a good idea of what to expect. It's a looter shooter with some vehicular combat. Naturally, everything has been improved a bit. Cars have lots of upgrades, which can be unlocked by stealing your enemy's cars and bringing them to a catch-a-ride station where they are disassembled. There are many weapons, and now most of them feature alternate firing modes, which gives them more versatility. Although let's be honest, most of these secondary fire modes are not really that useful. Some things in the gameplay can be quite annoying as well. For example, a part of your special item slots, such as the alien artifact slot for example, or your class mod slots, are unlocked after passing a certain mission in the single player campaign, the main ones I mean. The player is never told this, so my wife and I assumed it would probably be level related. We just thought, let's say we reach level 20 and then something unlocks. This is bad because the game will keep dropping you items for these slots even though they are still locked. If you are a completionist and want to do all the side quests like I do and reveal all the map secrets before advancing, the game can become very long and the main mission progress can slow down substantially. Another thing that I found very frustrating was how long you have to wait when interacting with boxes and other loot related items. For a fast-paced game, it sure wants you to be quite patient until the box is fully open and then the ammo becomes fully materialized. There are crystal deposits which needs to be broken, then the crystals have to fall on the ground and they have to stop rolling before you can actually loot them. It's so annoying that we would oftentimes simply skip these things because of how little you get for your patience. The game's pace should not be throttled by such things. Bugs are issues that also have to be mentioned. We have had quite a few quests bug out for various reasons, which forced us to restart, as well as cases of falling under the map. None of these bugs were game breaking, but as stated, some did require us to actually restart the game session because, for example, a quest NPC was just stuck somewhere and he wouldn't move to where he needs to, so we need to restart the whole thing. The combat has seen some changes as well. It seems like there are less enemies, but they hit harder. I mean, that's my impression, I can't say for sure. I haven't played the other games in a few years, but it just felt that way. Something feels different and it feels less fun during the first initial playthrough. An obvious indication of the changes are how the weapons you will mostly find and use are different from back in the day. Snipers, for example, are mostly obsolete now. The best weapons in the game for the most part now are the pistols. Then again, they come in so many variations that one can hardly call them pistols anymore. They fire like machine machine guns, they shoot little rockets, they have sniper optics on them. So the pistols are really the most versatile weapon in the game, and it keeps dropping them all the time. So for the most part, even in the late game, you'll be using pistols. Not necessarily, but that'll be definitely one of your guns is gonna be a pistol, and it's probably gonna be one of your best guns. Our first playthrough was simply not that fun due to the poor balance and super low selection of weapons. It even got to a point where we were being quite bored, but pushed on in order to see the ending. We're glad we did, because it unlocked Mayhem mode, which increases the difficulty substantially, but it also rewards you generously. It changed everything, and I kid you not. I will allow myself to make a comparison here. Think of Diablo 3. Borderlands 3 is very similar in terms of progression. You level up, you have skill trees, you also get new gear, which makes you stronger. The thing is, Diablo's first playthrough is somehow still fun. You're bombarded by lots of weaker enemies, which are for the most part not very challenging, but it is still fun to gear up, even if your gear isn't good during the first playthrough. The rewards improve as time goes on, and the pace just feels right. With Borderlands 3, things aren't like that. It feels like your rewards are crappy for the longest time, and once you beat the game and enter Mayhem mode, you suddenly experience a much more challenging, but above all, rewarding game. You also unlock Guardian levels, which allow you to allocate a point in some of your stats, giving you minor stat boosts, which over time stack up and become substantial. It's a good reward and feels like yet another thing that adds to your motivation to play. But there is another problem here. In the previous games, you had some special optional bosses and other endgame content. Here, all you do is replay the main story and wait for DLC. If you are a completionist like us, you will have uncovered everything during your first playthrough. So now you can only play for the sake of gearing up. Luckily, this is still fun, but I can't help feel like more could have been done. You can do the Circle of Slaughter, which is an arena where you fight against waves of enemies, but it's repetitive as hell and also something you can do during your first playthrough. Finally, you have the Proving Grounds, which are multiple arenas with an end boss, but they are just a handful and they make less than 20 minutes each to complete and can again be done during your first story run. So you could be done with all of this before you reach the second run. I would have liked to see a bit more, perhaps something like the rifts in Diablo, I don't know. The enemies are pretty fun to fight in Mayhem mode and can have modifications such as reflect on them. The issue here is that, unlike in Diablo, here you really can't tell what enemy is having what for the most part of it. I can't tell you how many times we have suicided on reflecting opponents. If there is a way that they somehow inform you of this or project it somehow, then we must be blind because we never could be able to tell. As far as I know, there's no way to tell if an enemy will reflect, for example, or most of other effects that they have. On the other hand, I found their taunts to be awesome. My character has a mustache and a psycho actually screamed, "Nice mustache, loser," while beating me up. That made my day. And I have to also say that I'm still in awe about the fact that we have pre-made characters with names and everyone still just calls you Vault Hunter, Killer, VH, etc. Just record a few more lines where the people actually know the characters' names. You are their hero and save them on numerous occasions. Why isn't this a thing? I mean, it's not like we have a character creator where we make a unique character and name him uniquely. They all have names that are pre-designed, you know. It should be no problem to do this. And it's been the case in every Borderlands until now, and it feels like a lazy thing. Not to mention, the story of this game is very focused around the Siren class. The main antagonist is a Siren. You get a lot of lore about them, and they are an integral part of the story. Yet somehow nobody seems to acknowledge the fact that one of the player's characters is also a Siren. My wife played Amara, and nobody gave a damn or even mentioned it. Amara is the Siren, by the way, for those of you who've never played the game. Even when talking about how many Sirens we have on our team, she's not counted. When she's even in the room next to the guys doing the count. The characters are not in any cutscenes, and it seems like they disappear as soon as the story advances. Nobody seems to even notice them, even though they do all the work and it breaks the immersion so badly. I feel like there is no point in giving us predefined characters if they are never considered in any way. Just let me do a generic character with any traits I want. What is the point of predefining their appearance and giving them names and even backstories? Might as well give us a shitty character creator, call it a day. It's time for Gearbox to try and do more than just guns with legs. Although I have to say, I love those guns with legs. They should definitely stay in the game. Just I want more good stuff like that. Now let's talk about political correctness, because there's more than enough in it in this game. For example, you have a gay couple, which seems absolutely relevant here. The game basically tells you, oh, by the way, those two guys are homosexual over there. The same with another character formerly known as Tiny Tina. She's a fan favorite and apparently also bisexual. How's that relevant? It absolutely isn't. We aren't told about the sexuality of the other characters because nobody cares and and it doesn't add to the experience of the story. Just imagine if they're like, oh yeah, that guy's heterosexual, that guy's heterosexual, that girl's heterosexual, and here we have two gays, and here we have, you know what I mean? No, we just get like, oh, this guy is gay, this guy is whatever, you know. The point is, why even talk about it? Either make it integral to the story somehow, make it relevant, or just leave it out. Nobody cares about your idea of what the pixels do. Now let's talk about the midgets in the game. Borderlands has always had them. They're funny and actually quite formidable since they're harder to hit. Well, now suddenly they are no longer called midgets. The same guys are now known as tinks. Yep. Why is this the case? Well, because apparently midget is offensive nowadays and could hurt someone's feelings. Of course, that line of reasoning is incredibly stupid. Because think about it, since calling someone a psycho is also offensive, but I don't see them being removed from the game or renamed out of fear of offending someone, I would have understood if they had done it smarter somehow. Make the enemies be super politically correct all of a sudden due to the influence of the Calypso twins, and make it so they enforce that with extreme violence. That would fit in the universe, it would be super funny and would justify such a change. And that's just an idea from a random guy on the internet. You know, I'm sure the smarter people who work at Gearbox Software could think of even funnier reasons if they want to do some political correctness. It doesn't have to be blatant. You can still make it smart so that it doesn't look like you're just trying to satisfy some radical people out there who are otherwise not going to buy your game. They probably still will. I really do not know anyone who would, but then again, who am I to talk? Of course, you don't want for someone to feel targeted with a joke either. I mean, that's what their position is. And like I said, if you absolutely have to do this, do it smart or don't do it at all. Just don't do it like this, because the truth of the matter is, while you are trying to not annoy some minority group of people who get annoyed by absurd reasons that are none to be annoyed of, you end up annoying everyone else, the big majority of people, because at this point we've had enough of this nonsense. It's just really going on my nerves. But enough, I don't want to go too deep into this discussion because it can take very long time. In conclusion, political correctness is stupid and annoying. It's a video game, nobody takes this seriously, and if they do, they should simply not play. So in conclusion, Borderlands 3 is a mixed bag. It does a lot of things right, but also fails in some areas where it did better in the past. I feel like the real fun begins after your first playthrough, and I have to say, you suddenly come to a realization at that point that there is no content left if you were playing the game through and through on your first playthrough like we did. My advice is push through the main story as fast as you can and disregard everything else. Save it all for your second playthrough when you can activate Mayhem mode. I know it's a weird thing to say, but trust me on this, it's more fun, more rewarding, and I wish I had known this before I started playing, because I would have enjoyed the game for much longer and I would have had more fun. I did forget to mention that I finally got my hands on some of those guns with legs, and those were awesome. I know I've talked a lot about this, but I saw the trailer and I was like, alright, I want this gun, and it comes up late in the game, but it's totally worth it. So should you play this game? If you like Borderlands in the past, you will most certainly like it now as well. It's pretty much more of the same, but with new characters, guns with legs, and some minor problems and annoyances. To me personally, Borderlands 2 was superior, but I still ended up having tons of fun for a few weeks with this game here as well. And as always, this is a segment where I remind you to give my Patreon account a look from time to time. I publish links to all the free games I can find there, but it's also a way to support me if you feel like it. In any case, thank you for watching and have a great day.